The lights in the hospital corridor flickered faintly as Daniel paced back and forth, his hands trembling. He hadn't slept in 2 days. The memory of the crash haunted him, glass shattering, metal twisting, her scream echoing through his ears. His wife, Amara, had been everything to him. Beautiful, elegant, the kind of woman that turned heads when she walked into a room. They had met at a tech conference in Abuja. Daniel, a rising software entrepreneur. Amara, a fashion stylist with a magnetic smile and big dreams. Their love had been fast and passionate, and their wedding, a lavish affair that made it into City People magazine. But now, 2 years into the marriage, everything had changed in a blink. The car accident wasn't her fault. A reckless trailer had skidded off the road in Lekki Phase 1, crashing into their vehicle. Daniel had escaped with a fractured rib and bruises. But Amara's side had taken the full impact. The doctors worked for hours. Her life was saved. But her once radiant face was no longer the same. Daniel stood by the door as the surgeon finally stepped out. "She survived," he said. "But her face, she may never look the same again." When Daniel entered the room, he saw her. Bandages wrapped around her head, tubes running from her nose. Her eyes opened slowly, barely able to focus. She smiled weakly, murmuring, "You stayed." He forced a smile, but something deep inside him recoiled. It was the first time he realized. He wasn't sure he could handle this. Weeks passed. The bandages came off. Amara's once smooth, caramel skin was now scarred. Her left eye had lost its natural shape, and a deep gash ran from her temple to her jaw. The doctors recommended reconstruction surgeries, but it would take time, and nothing would fully restore her former beauty. At home, the silence between them grew louder. Daniel became withdrawn, choosing to stay longer at work, avoiding her gaze. One evening, as Amara tried to sit beside him on the couch, he pulled away. "What's wrong with you?" she asked, her voice cracking. I need space," he muttered. "I'm still me, Daniel. I'm still your wife. You don't get it, Amara. Every time I look at you," he paused, the words choking in his throat, "it reminds me of what we lost." Tears rolled down her scarred cheeks. "You lost nothing. I lost everything." Days turned to weeks. Then came the papers. Divorce. He handed them to her in silence. Amara stared at them, her hands trembling. "You're leaving me, because I'm no longer beautiful." Daniel couldn't even meet her eyes. "I can't live like this, Amara. I'm sorry." She nodded slowly, wiping her tears. "Then go. Because what you see as the end of beauty will be the beginning of my becoming." She signed the papers. That night he left. But fate has a funny way of circling back. 6 months had passed since Daniel walked out of Amara's life. To the world he seemed fine, well-dressed, successful, still attending tech events in Banana Island and enjoying private dinners with Lagos elites. But inside something gnawed at him. At first he tried to move on. He even started seeing a popular Instagram influencer named Tenny, whose beauty reminded him of the old Amara. But her laughter never felt real. Her conversations shallow. And her obsession with filters and selfies only reminded him of what he had lost. Not just a face, but something deeper. Meanwhile, Amara had disappeared from the public eye. She moved to Enugu quietly, where her cousin owned a modest fashion training studio. With her savings and the little dignity she had left, she started over. First people stared. Some even whispered. Children flinched at her scars. But Amara didn't flinch. She stood tall, headscarf wrapped around her head, dark shades over her eye, and a fire in her soul that had never burned brighter. She began designing again. Not for beauty queens or celebrities, but for burn survivors, accident victims, and young girls who had been shamed for how they looked. She taught them how to sew, how to smile again, and how to see beauty beyond the mirror. Her designs soon gained attention online. Not for glamour, but for the stories behind each dress. A journalist from BBC Africa featured her under the headline, "Beauty Reimagined," The woman who turned scars into style. It went viral. Daniel saw the article one morning while sipping coffee at his Lekki apartment. His heart skipped. There she was, his ex-wife. No makeup. No filters. Just her scars, and her smile. A smile that didn't need perfection. He stared at the screen for a long time. Something in his chest tightened. That same week he received an invitation. A friend who didn't know about their divorce had forwarded it. You're invited to the Healing Threads Gala in Enugu, featuring designs by Amara Ease. Daniel's hand shook as he read the name. Amara Ease, still using his surname. A part of him whispered, "Don't go." But his heart whispered something else. The night of the gala. The hall was simple, draped in soft white fabric, with soft high-life music playing in the background. The models walking the runway were survivors, each wearing bold, defiant pieces crafted by Amara. The crowd clapped, some even cried. Then she stepped out. Amara, dressed in a flowing emerald gown she designed herself, one side off her shoulder. Her face still bore the scars, but her poise silenced the room. No one looked away. Daniel stood in the crowd, hidden at the back. His eyes welled up. She was more powerful now than she ever was when she was beautiful. After the show he waited. He saw her greeting people, hugging old friends. Then she spotted him. Their eyes locked. He froze. He took a step forward. Amara. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply said, "What are you doing here, Daniel?" "I saw the article. I had to see you," he replied. "You look." "Don't say beautiful," she cut in softly. "You only knew how to love that part of me." He swallowed. "You're right. I didn't know how to stay. But I see you now. The real you. And I'm ashamed of what I did." Silence. She looked at him quietly for a long time. Then said, "The man I once loved died the day he walked away. What stands before me now is just a memory." Daniel's eyes burned. "I want to make it right." She smiled gently. "I don't need you to make it right, Daniel. I already did." And with that she turned to walk away, head held high. The room watched her go, not out of pity, but in awe. Daniel stood there, frozen in place, realizing too late that sometimes when beauty fades, true strength rises. Amara returned to her small flat in Enugu that night and sat on the edge of her bed, still dressed in the emerald gown. The gala had been a success. Her designs had been praised. Orders were already flying in from Lagos, Nairobi, and even London. But what haunted her wasn't the applause. It was Daniel's eyes. That look of regret. That trembling voice. That "I want to make it right." She sighed deeply and unpinned the brooch on her chest, a tiny silver butterfly. It had once belonged to her mother. "Let it remind you," her mother once said, "that even the ugliest creatures go through seasons before they fly." Amara had finally begun to fly. Weeks later, her fashion school in Enugu, now called Threaded Souls, had doubled in size. Young girls came from all over the East. Nsukka, Abakaliki, Owerri. Girls with scars. Girls who had been mocked. Girls who had been told they were not enough. Amara taught them not just how to sew, but how to stand. She'd begin each class by saying, "Before you make something beautiful, remind yourself that you are already a masterpiece, even if the world doesn't see it yet." Media houses kept calling. Interviews. Radio. Invitations. Her story had struck a chord. But she remained humble. One day, a woman walked into her workshop with a timid girl, no older than 10. The girl's face had been badly burned in a cooking accident. Her classmates mocked her. She had stopped speaking. The mother whispered, "Someone told me what you do here. Please, help my daughter." Amara knelt before the child and took her tiny hand. "What's your name?" The girl stared at her, silent. "You don't have to speak," Amara smiled. "I'll teach you how to tell stories with your hands instead." And so, day after day, she trained the girl. Slowly, the child started to stitch her first dress. Then her second. Then a small laugh escaped her lips one afternoon, as the fabric tangled awkwardly. Amara caught it, and her heart swelled. That was the magic. Not the clothes, not the fame, but helping people rebuild their souls one stitch at a time. Meanwhile, in Lagos, Daniel sat alone in his high-rise apartment, watching another of Amara's features on Channels TV. She was speaking at a Women in Leadership forum. Her face still carried the marks of her past, but now they looked like war medals. He reached for his wine but paused. His world, his sterile, glossy world, felt so empty now. He had everything, but she had become everything. Back in Enugu, Amara was invited to deliver a TEDx talk. She stood on the Reddit, her voice steady. I lost my face in a fire, but I found my voice in the ashes. People ask, how did you rise again? And I tell them because I stopped waiting for someone to save me. I became my own rescue. The audience rose in a standing ovation. As she walked backstage, her assistant whispered, there's someone here who's been waiting to see you since morning. She turned the corner and froze. Standing there, holding a bouquet of white hibiscus flowers, was someone she hadn't seen in 10 years. Not Daniel. Someone from far deeper in her past. Someone who once abandoned her family. Her father. He looked older. Tired. Tears in his eyes. Amara, my daughter, he whispered. I've come to say I'm sorry. Her breath caught. Her knees wobbled. This was a wound she had buried long before Daniel ever existed. The noise of the TEDx crowd faded into a dull hum behind the curtain. Amara's eyes were locked on the man standing before her, taller than she remembered, hair now dusted gray, hands clasped like someone who'd rehearsed this moment for years. Her father. The same man who vanished when she was 13. The man who left her mother crying at midnight with unpaid rent and empty cupboards. The man who walked out and never looked back, not even when she made the papers for her marriage. Not even when the accident happened. Why now? She whispered. Her voice shook, not from weakness, but from decades of buried pain clawing their way to the surface. I saw your story, he said, his throat dry. I didn't know how strong you'd become. I didn't even know if I deserved to call you my daughter after everything. But Amara, I came because I couldn't carry the shame anymore. She stared at him, her jaw tight. You couldn't carry the shame. I carried the silence, the questions, the anger. I carried Mom's tears. And my own scars. Do you know what that feels like? He nodded slowly, his eyes brimming. I know I can't undo what I did. I was a coward. I ran from responsibility. Blamed life. I blamed the economy. But really, I just chose the easy road and let you suffer for it. Amara folded her arms, blinking away the sting in her eyes. So what do you want now? Forgiveness? No, he whispered. I want to serve. Not as your father. Maybe I lost that right. But as someone who will never walk away again, even if it's just to carry chairs in your school. Even if you never call me Papa again. Silence filled the hallway. Then Amara took a deep breath and said, Follow me. She led him out the back door of the event center, across the dusty road, and into the gates of Threaded Souls. The students were packing up, young girls with twisted burns, cleft lips, acid scars, but laughing like life had never broken them. She pointed at them. These girls. They had every reason to give up, hide, hate, but they chose to fight. Just like I did. Her father nodded slowly, his voice barely a whisper. And you've built something bigger than any one man could have ever given you. She finally looked him in the eye and said, You can start by cleaning the back storeroom. The fabric shelves are a mess. He gave a small smile. Yes, ma'am. Weeks later, Amara's father became a quiet fixture at the school. He didn't speak much. He swept floors, repaired broken sewing tables, shared lunch with the girls. And slowly, Amara began to thaw. One day, she walked into the office and saw him humming softly while oiling the legs of a mannequin stand. He paused. What song is that? He looked up. One your mother used to sing in the kitchen. Obim na sogi. Her chest tightened. A memory flashed. her mother spinning her in circles as a child, that very song on her lips. "I thought I forgot that song," she whispered. He smiled gently. "It stayed in me all these years. Just like you did." She didn't reply. She just walked over, picked up a needle and sat beside him. That night, as she stared out the window of her flat, Amara realized something. The man who broke her could never fix her. But he could kneel in the rubble, shoulder some of the weight, and help her rebuild from there. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The invitation arrived in a crisp white envelope with gold trim. The kind of envelope that screamed importance before it was even opened. It read, "Congratulations! You have been selected as one of 10 African designers for the Global Women of Impact Summit in Geneva, Switzerland. Your story and designs have inspired millions. We would be honored to have you present your collection on the world stage." Amara sat silently after reading it, her hand over her mouth. For a moment, she wasn't the strong, composed woman the world had come to admire. She was the girl who once cried in front of a cracked mirror, afraid no one would ever see her beyond her scars. And now, the world had not only seen her, they were celebrating her. A few weeks later, Geneva's air was cold and crisp. The summit was held inside a massive glass dome by the lake, with diplomats, celebrities, CEOs, and journalists flooding in from every corner of the globe. Amara stood backstage in a flowing white gown with beaded threads stitched by the very girls she trained. Each design told a story, not of pain but of power, not of what was lost but of what was reborn. The announcer's voice echoed. From Nigeria, the founder of Threaded Souls, survivor, designer, and healer, Amara Ease. The lights came on. Amara walked out, and the room stood. Not just because of her dress, not even because of her journey, but because she stood there with a kind of grace no one could fake. The kind of grace that comes from walking through fire and choosing not to burn. She took the mic and smiled, her scarred face glowing beneath the stage lights. "I was once told I'd never be whole again, that no one would love me, that beauty had abandoned me. But I learned something. True beauty isn't what draws people to you. It's what remains when the world walks away, and you stay standing." The crowd erupted. Cheers. Journalists scribbling. Back home in Enugu, the girls at Threaded Souls watched the live stream on a tiny laptop screen. They screamed her name, clapped, and danced around the workshop. Even her father, now affectionately called Baba Threads, wiped a tear with his sleeve. And in a quiet apartment in Lagos, Daniel sat on his couch, watching too. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He simply stood and clapped. Alone. Because now even he could finally see. Amara hadn't just risen. She had become a force. From disfigured to distinguished. From abandoned to admired. From scarred to soared. And she never needed a crown to become a queen. She only needed her story. Then. Thank you for watching. If you like similar videos, subscribe to our channel, like, comment and share.